Howdy y'all, my name is Brent Hefferton, Mistrunner, Drummer of the Mistrunner tribe, and today I wanted to talk to y'all about getting raid spots for various classes. There are many different classes that you can play as in World of Warcraft, but some of them are going to get you a raid spot a heck of a lot faster than others. Let's just go through them together for TBC Phase 2. So, first things first, the Warrior. Warrior was the most powerful class in vanilla TBC, even described as a hero class, and no other class could touch them in terms of damage, based upon how Rage scaled with world buffs and good gear. Warrior started out as a poop tier class, but as they got decked out in good gear, and they got their world buffs, they just do ridiculous amounts of damage. In BC, there are no more world buffs, so warriors don't have as much rage as they did back then, and they're more on an equal footing with other DPS classes in Phase 1 and Phase 2. Now, for melee and physical DPS, they're going to get stronger and stronger in the later phases because of things like getting all the expertise and hit they need, and getting armor penetration as a stat, so they're really going to shine later on. But right now, if you're a warrior, you may get a spot as a tank. Warrior tanks are very viable as a main tank or as an off tank, but as a DPS, you better be bringing some nice debuffs with your arms, arm spec warrior, or you better be shining on the meters as a fury. Any raid that's a 25-man raid will typically only take between 1 to 3 at most warriors. 3 is a little bit generous. So it's not one of the best classes to pick if you're looking for a quick raid spot, but if you're in it for the long haul, warrior is still a very strong class. What else is there? Hunter. Hunters are really good in BC. They used to be crap in vanilla. They had their uses, sure, but a really, really skilled hunter would perform basically like a shitty warrior. In BC, however, with Beast Mastery spec being reworked, a lot of the dead zone stuff being fixed, and just a bunch of the different stats being changed, Hunter is one of the most powerful DPS classes in a raid. And by virtue of being a ranged DPS class, they can ignore a lot of the mechanics. Like, say there's a mob that's going to do an arcane explosion around it. The Hunter's just so far away it doesn't even matter. So, in terms of convenience, Hunter is a very convenient class to play, and some raids will bring 3 or more Hunters to a 25-man. So for a DPS class, Hunter is a pretty decent pick. Shaman. Shaman is probably the most desired class of any in a 25-man raid. The reason they're so strong is because they bring things like Bloodlust. Bloodlust increases the attack speed of everyone in the party, so you basically want 1 in every party. That's 5 Shaman per raid. Many raids will set that as their minimum. We will have at minimum 5 Shaman in the raid. And then sometimes we'll have 2 Shaman in one of the groups, so up to 6. It's an extremely powerful class. Enhancement Shaman give tons of buffs to physical DPS, and they do a decent amount of damage in their own right. Elemental Shaman is much improved from vanilla. Shaman DPS back in vanilla used to be just poop crap, but in BC it's legitimate, big time. And on top of having legit DPS, you also bring Wind Fury Totem, Mana Spring Totem, Strength of Earth Totem, Tremor Totem, Bloodlust, and so on. Elemental Shamans bring a whole bunch of utility, which help out caster DPS like Warlocks and Mages. And Resto Shaman bring Earth Shield and Mana Tide and all that good stuff. So Shaman is the most #1 top desirable class for TBC 25-man raids. If you look at any of the recruitment channels for the Discord of your server, you'll notice that they're looking for Shaman of some kind, either a Resto or an Elemental mainly. You would say Enhancement is the least desired of the 3, but still has a lot of spots for raids. Druid. Druids are improved from vanilla to BC, largely because you don't have to worry about world buffs and players reaching buff cap, so Druids can go all out now with their hots. Back in vanilla, poor Braun, my brother, he couldn't even use a bunch of his hots because it would push off my Dragon Slayer and all kinds of other shit. Now, druids can go full on, put their life bloom, they can turn into trees, do regrowth. Resto Druid is extremely powerful in raids. It's one of the best healing classes right now, just in terms of raw power. Plus you get a battle res for any spec of a druid. Bears are extremely strong tanks. In vanilla, you would say that a bear could tank a bunch of stuff, but a warrior would be objectively better. In BC, there are fights where a druid bear tank outshines a warrior many times. So, if you want to play feral, you want to play a bear tank, it is a more mechanically simple way of kicking butt and really holding a bunch of threat and being really tanky. So if you don't want all the button pushing of warrior tanking, but you want to have a really strong tanking option, bear tank is really good. Cat DPS is better than it was in vanilla, and you don't have to farm those pesky manual crowd pummelers anymore. So feral's in a pretty good spot. You also bring +5 crit for physical. And then Boomkin is a really powerful improvement from vanilla. In vanilla, it was a meme spec where you could do that, and the people in your party might like that, but they added something called Improved Fairy Fire, which increases all attackers' chance to hit by 3. So every warrior, every rogue, every hunter, everybody who needs hit rating is going to be super happy just to have a Boomkin in the raid. So basically, every raid is going to look for 1 Boomkin. You don't typically bring more than 1, but it is a desirable spec for sure. Rogue. Rogue is the bottom of the barrel. No one wants rogues. They can do some good damage, but they have to be very skilled and they have to try very hard. So why would you bring a rogue when you could bring a hunter, and the hunter could be not as good of a player and still do pretty good damage? Rogues scale really well into phase 6. They're going to have glaives maybe. War glaives typically will go on rogue or a DPS warrior. They get armor pen and all kinds of great stats. They can bring imp expose armor to the raid, which has a more powerful effect if you've talented into it than 5 stacks of Sunder armor. So rogue does have some utility, and it is fairly powerful, but compared to the other classes like hunters, warlocks, the shaman, druids, all this kind of stuff, people don't really want rogues. So if you go to the looking for guild channels, it's a bunch of rogues talking about how good their damage is, but they don't have a raid because it's hard to get a raid spot as a rogue. They're really fun and strong in PvP, and they can top the meters in PvE sometimes, depending on the fight and depending on their gear and skill. But compared to other classes, this is going to be probably the worst pick for getting a raid spot. Priest. Priests are pretty strong. They're one of the better healing classes. They've got Circle of Healing. If you want to go for a Holy Priest, you can go Discipline and buff some of the casters. And raids can take 1 or 2 Shadow Priests. Shadow Priests give a bunch of mana to their allies, and they do decent amounts of damage. For Priest, you'll probably get a raid spot. It's going to be a lot more welcoming than if you're a rogue or a hunter or anything like that. Maybe it's a little bit less than a shaman, but healers are pretty much always in demand. And there's more healer turnover in raids. Tanks oftentimes will be very stuck to their guild, so it's hard to just join a guild and get a tank spot, but you could join and get a healer spot. Priest is a very good class. They can resurrect. They can put hots on everybody. They've got their own fat heals, AoE heals, mass dispel. Magic dispel is a very, very powerful ability. So yeah, Priest is a good call. Mage. Mages are not quite as glorious as they were in vanilla. In vanilla, they were kind of along warriors, where if you put them in their category, they're just a hero unit. In vanilla, mages could farm entire instances by themselves by just running through, pulling everything, and then AoEing it down all at once. They can make a ton of money doing this. But they made an AoE cap change, so mages can't quite do that to the same extent anymore. Nevertheless, they deal pretty good damage. They bring water and food, which people love. They can port people around, which is nice. And they're a ranged DPS, which means they can ignore a lot of the melee mechanics. Mage is not going to be quite as high performing as a warlock a lot of the time, but if you spec into arcane or fire, you're definitely going to be pumping out a lot of damage. Warlock. This class is kind of busted. It's really, really powerful. They added an ability called Seed of Corruption, where you can put the seed in a set of units and then just put a whole bunch of them and they just do a huge explosion of damage. It's crazy. In addition, their single target damage is good. They bring hailstones to the raid. They bring a soulstone to the raid. They're basically like a mage, except better. And they're also ranged, so they can ignore those pesky melee mechanics. And they're going to be one of the highest performing DPS classes throughout all of BC. Raids will normally bring 2 to 5 warlocks. I don't even know how many you could bring, but it's just a super good class. What did I miss? Oh, Paladin. Paladins are very, very strong. Compared to, vanilla, Paladins, they've got a lot better in the other specs aside from Holy. In vanilla, Holy was the way to go. I didn't really know too much about Paladins because we didn't have them in vanilla on the Horde side, but they bring really strong buffs. King's Might, Salvation is an extremely strong buff. Wisdom, all those cool things. So even if a Paladin has no idea how to play their class, as long as they can figure out how to buff the raid, they're going to bring a whole bunch to the total raid's power level just by making sure everyone has the proper buffs. In addition, they have White Protection with Divine Intervention. They can bubble themselves to avoid damage, so they have good defensives. And each of their specs is much improved from vanilla. Prot Paladins are fully legit. They're one of the best tanks for heroics. They're the #1 best tank for AoE tanking. So large numbers of stuff. Consecrate deals heaps of threat. They can hold a bunch of stuff. Lots of people will want you for spell cleave, farming for rep, and that kind of thing. They're not the best single target tank, but if you're really skilled and know what you're doing, you could probably make it work. Generally, a raid will bring 1 warrior tank, 1 bear tank, and 1 paladin tank. That's a pretty decent, well-rounded composition. The other spec, Retribution, used to be, well, poop tier in vanilla. But in BC, Ret can be really good. Ret Paladins, typically at level 70, are either really good at what they do, and they can bump out 800 to 1k or more DPS, or they have no idea what to do. They don't seal twist or anything, and they do 300 damage, and it's kind of sad to look at. So Ret's one of those classes where you do have to work a little bit hard to show up on the meters, but if you do, it's a very viable class, and in addition, they give plus 3% crit to the raid. So they're kind of like a boomkin, in that if you just bring one of them, they bring a very, very strong effect to the raid before any damage that they deal personally. I think that's all the classes. So yeah, best of the best would be Shaman. Shaman is going to be the class that's going to get you a spot the fastest, by far. And then picking a healer or tank role, that could work out pretty well for you. If you want a DPS, Warlock is going to be the one to get raid spots the easiest. Mage is not too bad. Hunter is a very strong class in BC. Raids will bring multiple hunters. If you want to be a rogue, good luck finding a raid spot. You can, but the odds are pretty low. I have a rogue, level 70, but he's my alt, so he's not in my main raids. I just try to find Karazhans and things to run with him. And I got the Aldor main hand just from rep, and then the Bissoff hand is from Black Morass normal. So you can play the classes that are not the most desirable. It just means that people are going to choose other people over you when they're trying to fill their raid. One thing that you can do to offset this is host your own raids. Maybe you're a rogue and you want a DST. Well, you could host a Gruul and reserve it for yourself. That's a pretty standard practice. There's a lot of effort that goes into hosting a run, so it's normal for the host to reserve something. Back in vanilla, someone might reserve the Oni neck if they're hosting a run and they need that. That's all kind of fine and well. Basically, it boils down to if you want to play a less than most desirable class, you've got to put in more work to get the rewards. The flip side, when I got the Shaman to level 70, as soon as I dinged 70, I instantly became a carry and I got invited to a Gruul within 4 seconds. Because she's got Bloodlust, she's got Windfury Totem, Mana Tide, and Earth Shield. Even before all this gear came along, the Shaman brings so many tools to the toolbox and to the raid, and you want 5 of them, that you don't even have to be super good, you don't have to know all the fights, just being a Shaman is enough. Well, hope y'all found this breakdown useful. If you want to get into TBC or level another character, and you're wondering about raid spots. Don't forget to buy your consumes and repair before the raid, and get arrows if you're a hunter. From me, Brun, ancestors watch over you.